She was perhaps 10 years old. Her hair was tied back. Her face was frightened, her eyes wide open, like those of a fawn. She was a little girl among many, clinging to her mother, while the priestly procession passed through the crowd. It was then that the Supreme Pontiff stopped, pointed to her, and pronounced her fate. She would be the next Vestal. No one dared to oppose her. In an instant, her childhood ended. She was chosen not for lineage or family ambition, but for the purity of her blood, the regularity of her birth, and the perfection of her body. Rome had claimed her, and no one could say no to the eternal city. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel if you like these videos and leave a like. Now let's start. Thus began the life of a Vestal, not with a celebration, but with a separation, with the loss of a name, a home, a mother. The little girl was sent away in silence, accompanied by unshed tears and a strange sense of solemnity that no child can truly understand. She crossed the sacred way not as a citizen, but as an offering. From that moment, she no longer belonged to herself, but to the goddess Vesta. The selection rite was ancient and merciless. The candidate had to be between 6 and 10 years old, the daughter of 2 living parents, free Roman citizens, and not marked by ignominies. Her body had to be free of defects, her birth legitimate, her lineage irreproachable. In a sense, he represented the very idea of Rome, pure, orderly, whole. It was not uncommon for families to try to avoid the nomination. Some offered bribes, others feigned illnesses or deformities. But once the choice was made, there was no way out. Once consecrated, the new Vestal was taken to the atrium Vestae, the house of the Vestals, next to the Temple of Vesta, in the heart of the Forum. A place of austere beauty, but also of separation. For 30 years, she would live there. 10 years of apprenticeship, 10 of active service, 10 of teaching. The elders guided her. The priests watched over her. The people venerated her. She was no longer a child. She was not yet a woman. She was something else, a symbol, a sacred body, a conduit to the divine. The Vestals guarded the sacred fire of Rome, a flame that could never be extinguished under penalty of misfortune for the entire state. Every day that fire was fed with rigorous and silent rituals. Its light was the life of Rome, its extinction, the threat of decadence, and every Vestal was responsible for it. But their task went beyond religion. They were official witnesses, they had their own property, they could free slaves with a word, they had a place of honor at public games, and yet all this came at a price. Chastity was not a choice. It was an absolute bond. The vow was made before the goddess Vesta herself, and it was valid for 30 years. No man could touch them, no desire could touch them. Their bodies belonged to the state. It was their virginity that protected Rome, their purity that kept the fire burning. The law was clear, and its punishments implacable. If a Vestal extinguished the sacred fire, even by mistake, she could be whipped. In secret, in the dark, away from prying eyes. The Pontifex Maximus carried out the punishment, sometimes personally. Sources tell of rods, tears, and silence. Girls were never exposed naked, never humiliated in public. Their dignity was maintained, while being punished. A Roman paradox, protecting honor even in pain. But the most feared punishment was reserved for those who violated the vow of chastity. The accusation was that of incestum, sacrilege, not simple adultery. The trial was internal, presided over by the College of Pontiffs. No public defense, no guarantee of justice. If found guilty, the Vestal was condemned to a silent, ritual death, burial alive. The ritual was as solemn as it was chilling. The condemned Vestal was led in procession, veiled, barefoot, dressed in white. The people watched in silence. She looked like a bride, but she was going to her funeral. She was crossing the city, for the last time, towards the Campus Sceleratus, the field of the wicked outside the walls. A pit had been dug there, inside which were a bed, a lit lamp, bread, water, and milk. Symbolic objects, to pretend that it was not an execution. Rome did not shed sacred blood, but the result was the same. Once lowered into the pit, the entrance was closed with earth and stones. The Vestal remained alive, alone in the dark. No one spoke of her anymore. No one wrote her name. Silence was her true tomb. The people of Rome had loved them, feared them, venerated them, but a suspicion, a voice, a mistake, and they were erased. Not only from life, but from memory. Their sacrifice was not only human, it was political, symbolic, eternal. The story of the Vestals reflects the most rigid and cruel face of Roman civilization. These women were pillars of the moral order, but also prisoners of an absolute virtue, symbols of purity, and victims of the cult of perfection. What does a society lose when it sacrifices humanity in the name of virtue? Perhaps everything. As Thucydides warned, the strong do what they can, the weak suffer what they must. And in Rome, not even sanctity was strong enough to save itself. In the heart of ancient Rome, the Vestals represented the perfect and terrifying union between the sacred and the political, between religious devotion and social control. These girls, torn from the world of the family to be consecrated to the goddess Vesta, embodied the ideal of purity on which the very legitimacy of the Roman state was founded. Venerated as living symbols of the cosmic order, they were at the same time prisoners of a role that left no room for error nor for human desire. Their seemingly honorable existence hid a harsher reality, living without freedom, without choice, and under constant moral surveillance. Purity was not an abstract value, but an ideological weapon. The virginity of the Vestal was an extension of the integrity of the res publica. Its fall, real or imagined, threatened the entire civil order. To this, Rome responded not with understanding, but with ritual, not with justice, but with symbolic annihilation. In the ritual of live burial, Rome did not just kill a woman, it buried doubt, erased failure, and strengthened its authority through silence. The Vestal did not die as a culprit, but as a warning. A civilization that prided itself on its rationality, its laws, and its sense of proportion did not hesitate to transform the body of a girl into an altar and a tomb, into a symbol and a sacrifice. The story of the Vestals, then, is also a lens through which to observe the price that societies are willing to pay to preserve their order. A purity built on oblivion and fear. A devotion that does not allow for redemption. An empire that, despite its greatness, is reflected in the fragility of those who most of all bore its sacred weight. That's all for today. And what do you think of this story? Let me know in the comments. Your opinion is very important to support the channel. See you next time. Bye.